I don't think that there is anything R&B when it comes to Dionne Warwick. So I am going to call her Pop Diva. And she's up next. Let's talk. What's up, everybody, and welcome back over here to my channel, Pepe's Point of View, and I am your R&B historian. I am your host, Pepe, and today we're going to talk about R&B diva. Nah, I can't say that. We're going to talk about pop diva, Dionne Warwick. That's right. In the book by David Nathan, his book, The Soulful Divas. Now, I have to say it again, disclaimer. I am not associated with David Nathan, nor am I associated with Dionne Warwick. I am talking about David Nathan's book, The Soulful Divas, and I have my copy. And I think you should get your copy too. Yes, go out and get your copy of David Nathan's The Soulful Divas. This is not paid promotion, but I just want to know more about my R&B divas. And hey, we're talking about them over here. All right. So I should say thank you, new viewers, you returning viewers. I want to say thank you guys to the subscribers out there. I appreciate all of your help and all of your support. I thank those that leave comments. I appreciate it. Those who also request that I cover a particular R&B diva, and trust me, I do take note of that, and I'm getting around to it as well. But let's dive right into this uh, uh, segment on pop diva Dionne Warwick. And usually what I do is that I would start with the first page, actually just read the first page and then I'm done. However, and what I decided to do was kind of like look through, this particular segment on Dionne Warwick, and I'm going to start on page 24 in the book. So that's where I'm starting. Take that back, page 25. My apologies. Page 25. Let's talk. Let's see what David Nathan had to say about Dionne Warwick. During the mid-1960s, Dionne went through her share of personal changes. She met drummer turned actor Bill Elliott and married him in 1963, divorced him a year later, and remarried him a year after that. The marriage appeared to be happy, and in 1969, she gave birth to her first son, David, shortly after completing Slaves, her first major movie, which co-starred Ossie Davis and Stephen Boyd. 4 years later, son Damon was born, and in 1975, the couple finally split or separated. Bill Elliott passed away in 1983, and Dionne has always remained publicly tight-lipped about the reasons for the split. Markedly guarded when broaching any subject she deems too personal, Dionne has never been one to open up to prying journalists. And on occasions when she feels that her privacy is being compromised, she becomes noticeably cool. I've seen this reaction a couple of times, and it is clear that she doesn't suffer fools gladly. Her eyebrows arch, and wise folks will think before venturing on. Not recognizing the size, some of my more intrusive journalistic colleagues have tested the boundaries. Ooh, this is getting kind of tasty. Tested the boundaries, walking away with the impression that she is aloof to the point of being an ice goddess. I consider myself fortunate in gaining Dion's trust by respecting her desire to stay away from subjects that she considers off limits. However, that didn't stop her from being remarkably candid in a 1979 interview we did for Blues and Soul. On the verge of a career renaissance with her first best-selling album for Arista Records, Dion was ready to talk. It was only after my divorce, and I hesitate to actually say this, that I really got to know myself and like myself. Now, that's a heavy statement for anyone to make about themselves, but it's quite true because, frankly, for a lot of those years, I didn't like me. I knew there was a person in there somewhere, but I was always thinking about being Miss Somebody, never thinking about the real me in there. Ooh, you go ahead on, Dion. I like that. Thus, a separation and divorce were likely far from her mind as the 1960s came to a close. But within a couple of years, Dion was facing a professional split that was to have far reaching effects. With a solid decade of hits behind her, it was hardly surprising that Dion was being wooed by various major record companies as her contract with Skepta was up for renewal. Leaving was not easy for several reasons. Labor President Florence Greenberg had been more than just a company head. She had become a friend, almost like a second mother to the woman who had become the independent record label's top international best-selling artist. Dion had also bonded with the Shirelles, even joining the group for a hot minute when lead singer Shirley Alston was pregnant and Chuck Jackson, whom Dion referred to as her showbiz big brother, staff producer Luther Dixon, and Greensburg's son Stan Green, and son-in-law Sam Goff had all worked with Dion on her very early recordings after she signed with the label in 1962. Skepta's in-house personal manager, Paul Cantor, had become Dion's personal manager by 1964 and remained so until the early 1980s. And Dion met Marie Byers, originally a Skepta employee who began working as her personal secretary, a position Byers has held ever since. When Warner Brothers Records came to the table with a big money offer, Greenberg couldn't match it. So she gave Dion her best wishes as she lost her most consistent hit maker. The original 1971 deal included Dion and the golden team of Baccarat and David. And while the final years of Skepta hadn't been as musically inspiring as the first few had been, Warner Brothers clearly felt that it was getting a great package. For all intents and purposes, they were. The first album produced by the trio for its new recording home was one of its best, including great new Baccarat and David songs like Be Aware and I Just Have to Breathe, as well as a remake of They Long to Be Close to You and a version of One Less Bell to Answer, a song Dion claimed to have done the original demo for years before The Fifth Dimension made it into a major hit record. On the advice of astrologer Linda Goodman, Dion, who had always shown an interest in psychic matters, attending a seance or two in London, according to British fan club secretary Gloria Marcantonio, back in the mid-1960s, had added the letter E to her last name in 1971. Instead of bringing her good fortune, the added vowel had the completely reverse effect. Anyone who's into astrology will tell you, Linda Goodman, she's one of the finest astrologers. However, she is a horrible numerologist. She did my name numerologically and said that I needed to come up with one more letter to have the right vibrations in my name. That's the story. I got rid of that extra E as quickly as I could. Apparently not quickly enough. No sooner had Dion finished recording her Warner's debut than she read in a newspaper that Baccarat and David were no longer talking and no longer working together. The impact was devastating, and Dion felt betrayed. Accepting that the pair had split was one thing, reading about it in the papers was another matter. Without the two men who had been such an essential part of her musical career for so long, she was left to her own devices. Warner Brothers suggested that she hook up with Eddie Holland, Lamont Dozier, and Brian Holland. The trio had created a string of hits in Motown for the Supremes, Martha and the Vandellas, and the Four Tops, and others, before starting their own labels, Hot Wax and Invictus. With their own company, HDH, Holland, Dozier, and Holland, graced the charts through such artists as Frida Payne. Chairman of the board, Laura Lee in the Honeycomb. Dionne Warwick, with an E, was another proposition. Although the resulting album, Just Being Myself, was a notable change of flavor for the singer, the public responded with little interest, hardly helped by a lack of enthusiasm on the part of Warner Brothers. Working with the guys was different, Dionne said during a 1973 interview for Blues and Soul. I have to be honest and say that I was not personally satisfied with the finished product or my part of it. The material was good for the Invictus artist, but somehow it just wasn't right for me. Attempting to remedy the situation, Warner Brothers teamed Dionne with Nick Ashford and Valerie Simpson. The results, including the song No One Else Gets the Prize, later recorded by Dionne Ross for her 1980 bestseller, The Boss, according to all concerned, were fine but never saw the light of day. According to Warner tape laws, there was an abortive session with Baccarat alone, an extensive recording date with producer Tony Camello, which yielded no releases. In the midst of trying to figure out how to salvage her recording career, Dionne was going through a great deal of personal trauma. Her father passed away suddenly in 1977, and her mother suffered a stroke the next day. Her relationship with Bill Elliott was coming apart at the seams. All of a sudden, her life was in turmoil. A hookup with Philadelphia's master producer Tom Bell who was responsible for hits with the Delphonics and the Stylistic, provided a respite. Excuse me, I don't know why I said that name wrong. Respite. I'm sorry, you guys. Dionne had been touring with the Spinners and Bell, who had given the group a string of hits at Atlantic Records beginning in 1972 with I'll Be Around. The Detroit-based quintet had scored 6 back-to-back top 10. I'm sorry about that. Hey, listen, I done told you guys, when you mess up, just keep going. I'm not even going to edit it out. It is what it is. A hookup with the Philadelphia's master producer, Tom Bell, who was responsible for hits with the Delphonics and the Stylistic, provided a respite. Oh, God, I keep messing that up. I'm just going to cut it out. I'm sorry. Okay. A hookup with the producers. A hookup with Philadelphia's master producer Tom Bell, who was responsible for hits with the Delphonics and the Stylistic, provided a respite. A hookup with Philadelphia's master producer Tom Bell, who was responsible for hits with the Delphonics and the Stylistics, provided a respite. Dionne had been touring with the Spinners and Bell, who had given the group a string of hits at Atlantic Records beginning in 1972 with I'll Be Around. The Detroit-based quintet had scored 6 back-to-back top 10 R&B singles with Bell by the time they entered the studios with Dionne to record the song Then Came You. Released in 1974, the Gold single gave Dionne her first ever #1 pop hit and should have been the catalyst for a turnaround in her recording career. Dionne didn't do an entire album with the Spinners, but Then Came You became the title track for an album produced by Jerry Ragavoy, best known for his work with soul stalwarts like Garnett Mims, Lorraine Ellison, Howard Tate, and the writer of some of the rock star Janis Joplin's biggest hits. While the musical combination worked well, Warner Brothers failed to bring the album home. Worse still, the album Track of the Cat, an excellent collaboration with Bell, released at the end of 1975, did little to remedy matters. Although considered Dion's best work for the Burbank-based company, it didn't achieve anything like the success it deserved. Tracks like Jealousy and One More Time were hardly heard. One song in particular, His House and Me, was a standout, and it was obvious to anyone who knew Dion well that the song was written for her in the aftermath of her recent divorce with Bill Elliott. Bell later confided to me that Dion had burst into tears when she first tried recording the song, a tale of a woman who a tale of a woman who was left alone in the home she once shared with her husband. Woo, child, that is a lot, isn't it? And very interesting, I must say. I guess I would end by just simply saying this. I can kind of understand people wanting to have their privacy and to keep it. I don't think that, Dion should, have her life open to prying eyes. I do believe that some people, if you want to keep your personal life personal, keep it personal. It doesn't necessarily have to be any drama. And then at the same time, if it was drama, you know what? I don't want to talk about it. So let's move on. So I say my hats off to that and good for Dion. For, like, as I said, want to keep her private life private. There's a lot that I want to talk about Dion, but I would end it on this note. I have yet to really dive into Dion's catalog, but I will say this: with the number of songs that Dion originally recorded, but later became household names in other artists' catalogs, such as Anita Baker, Patti LaBelle, uh, and Luther Vandross. When you find out that these songs were recorded by Dionne Warwick, it almost makes you want to go back and see how was the song received back then. I have my opinions about it, but I'm gonna keep them to myself for a later time. So on that note, if you made it this far in my commentary, then I think it's only appropriate for me to ask you guys to hit the subscribe button and hang out with me as we talk about R&B divas. Yes. And my motto is simple. Whenever I leave my mother's presence, she always says, baby, remember I love you, but God loves you best. I love you guys out there. Make sure that you're loving yourself as well. I look forward to seeing you next video. And until then, you guys know what to do. Take care of yourselves. All right.